David officially facing life in prison for unaliving Celeste Rivas Hernandez. 20-year-old California rapper David has officially been sentenced to life in prison and charged with taking the life of his ex-girlfriend Celeste Hernandez, an underage girl who's been missing since April 5th, 2024. This news started making headlines after a towing company called law enforcement because they were convinced one of the vehicles in their lot smelled like a rotten body. After law enforcement arrived to the scene and did some investigating, they found pieces of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body in the front trunk of a Tesla, which belonged to David. It was only days after when David's house was raided by the feds and he was taken in for investigation. And now, about a week after the investigation started, David is being charged with first degree and is now looking at facing life behind bars. The crazy thing about all this is fans are connecting the dots, and basically his hit song Romantic Hom gives away all the major details in this case. It's been compared to the YNW Melly case, and now I can see why, except Melly still has a chance, but David, his career is over after this. There's obviously a lot to get into with all that's going on in the industry and all of the reactions to David unaliving Celeste. But today, we'll mainly be sticking to David officially facing life in prison for unaliving Celeste Rivas Hernandez, because this is the talk of the town. Nobody expected the rapper to actually do this. We're talking about David, the dude everyone's blaming for taking out Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Yeah, you heard that right. So let's start with the big question. Why is David being blamed? Well, police say all the signs point towards him. They were in a rocky relationship, and the last time anyone saw Celeste alive, she was with him. That's like playing hide and seek, but the it person never comes back. When this goes to trial and he's proven guilty, we're talking serious charges, aggravated charges, and maybe even kidnapping, depending on how prosecutors spin it. Basically the kind of charges where you don't just serve time, you become time. Now, let's rewind. How did David and Celeste even get together? Well, it all started in a classic industry romance. He was climbing the music charts, she was hanging around the scene, and people thought she was too sweet for a guy like David. Friends were like, girl, don't do it, and she was like, but he's different. Spoiler alert, he was not different. That's why people were worried. She was getting pulled into his lifestyle like it was a black hole. And speaking of disappearing, Celeste has been missing for months. Law enforcement scrambled search parties, press conferences, tip hotlines, you name it. They even brought in the whole CSI starter pack, dogs, drones, and detectives. But nothing worked, until suspicion circled back to David. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Some reports say David and Celeste's arguments were so loud, neighbors thought they were rehearsing for WWE. And get this, David's music, yeah, the stuff that made him famous, was literally inspired by his dark romantic struggles. His discography is basically a prequel to this whole situation. That's kind of art imitating life that nobody asked for. And speaking of his career, David was on top of the world. Dude went from SoundCloud to stadium tours. He had features lined up with big names, millions of streams, and fans calling him the next big thing. But after this, nah, it's over. Nobody's buying tickets to the tour 2026. Labels are already ghosting him harder than he ghosted Celeste's texts. Sponsors, gone. Streams, tanking. The only recording contract in his future is the one they read in court before sentencing. So to sum it all up, David went from up-and-coming artist to prime suspect in record time. If he's guilty, he's looking at life behind bars. If he's innocent, well, good luck convincing the internet. Because once the timeline decides you're guilty, you're basically guilty forever. And that, my friends, is how a promising music career turned into a true crime documentary.